Hurry, disunity of the soul, that diagnosis shuts out relationships due to a lack of availability. We rob ourselves of life in its fullness. We rob ourselves of life in the present. We rob ourselves of life in his presence. So we have the diagnosis. Second, we have the prognosis. What happens with hurry, with disunity of the soul, is we become deaf to God and others. Jesus' words in Matthew 11 through 25, he's upset with 3 cities, 3 towns, who saw all his miracles. Almost all of his miracles were done in these 3 cities. And he sums it up in verse 25 that the proud, those trying to make control of their own lives, are deaf to God. But it's the humble who listen to God. And you know what? You cannot listen to God in a hurry. You cannot listen to God with disunity of the soul. Richard Swenson's written a book called Margin. And he says we've lived our lives at 120% capacity. And he asked this question, and I want to ask you. If God called you today, would he get a busy signal? Because of your overcommitment, because of your hurry, because of disunity of the soul. An OBGYN in Texas has coined the phrase hurried woman syndrome. And it's interesting because Paul is writing to the Philippian church that you can see in Acts 16 is mainly women. And it emphasizes that this is an issue of the soul. It's not from external circumstances. It's not because we have all these gadgets and technology. And this doctor says that women have adopted hurry, busyness, as a normal lifestyle, and then they begin to shut down and their bodies mimic depression, and they become deaf to the world around them. But can you imagine, I used to auction collector cars, and sometimes I still do, but can you imagine? And we talk at about 120 words a minute. We think at 450 words a minute. When I auction, I can actually talk faster than people think. It's really cool. But imagine this. If I was auctioning collector cars, imagine this. If I tried to auction the car that just went out, the car that's on the turntable now, and the car that's going to come in next, all at the same time. See, that's the difference between things that have to be done quickly and hurry. I tried to live my life selling all 3 of those cars at the same time, and I became deaf to God. 2 kittens kind of popped in our lives, thanks to a friend of mine who's here today, a couple months ago. And my daughters, I got 3 little girls, my 2 oldest ones, they split these cats up. And, they're just part of our lives. Well, 8.5 inches of snow on the 24th and 25th, right? And my wife keeps getting worried because the kittens, I thought they're supposed to be smart. They don't stay in the nice little house they got with the heat lamp. They go stay underneath our pool cover kind of a deal in this little gap where they stay warm and stuff. Well, there was this metal lid that goes over that, and there's this gap. And my wife said, that 8.5 inches of snow is going to come in. It's going to snow them in, and they will suffocate and die. I said, so? You heard what Kelly said about cats. I go, they're animals, they're smart, they'll get out. Well, Susan and I exchanged gifts on the 24th late at night, so we're ready for our kids when they wake up. So I'm kind of out of it, and in the middle of the morning, I didn't know she did this. And she comes in and tells me this. I got a sermon illustration for you, buddy. I said, what? She says, I went out there in the middle of the night, and that gap was blown over, and they were in there, and they were going to suffocate, and you can use it as a sermon illustration because they were deep in their sin, but I came and saved them. And I'm laying there, I go, oh, I might use that, dear. So anyway, more snow comes on the 25th, right? Gap, snow, hole, same deal. Susan gets the one out. Keeps calling for the second one. Second one doesn't come out. I swore I'd never do it again, but I do it once a year. I was snow blowing my driveway, which is too big to be snow blown, and I'm tired. It's been 3 hours of that, and she thinks maybe I tossed some snow and suffocated this cat. All right? And I'm kind of okay that the cat might be missing until this happens. My 8-year-old daughter, Kelsey, walks up to me and says, and she's out there looking, and that makes me sad. And she says, Daddy, I prayed to God to help us find the cat, and he hasn't helped me. I said, hold on. I am a doctor of theology. Let me fix this. I said, God may be taking care of that cat right now as you speak. Don't say that about God. And you know where it was? It was alive in that same place. We found out that that cat was deaf. And I had some fun with that afterwards. I yelled behind it, Nilla, Nilla, no response. And the kitten could not hear the call of her owner's voice. And I just want to ask you today, to whom have you become deaf? Is it a friend, a coworker, maybe a spouse, maybe a child? Is it God? Have you become deaf to God? Well, we have the diagnosis, we have the prognosis, and third, we have the antidote. Matthew 11:28, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Come and humble your heart to Christ, yield to his Spirit, give him control of your life, and remember that the easiest way to avoid heart transformation is to embrace Jesus as an example, but maintain control of your own life. Coming to Christ in humility and humbling your heart is not a moral act. It's not some moral act worthy of wages. It's recognizing my immorality and my inability to have rest for my soul anywhere but in Jesus Christ. Paul writes in Philippians 4:6, "But in everything, not some things, in everything, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." See, I come to Christ in prayer. I humble my heart and I receive rest. Notice that Paul says prayer and petition. Those are two different things. Prayer is how I approach God. Petition are the things that I ask him. So prayer is actually humbling my heart to God, allowing his desires to become my desires. It's like Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight in the Lord and he will give you the desires of your heart." Had a girl ask me a few years ago, does that mean he will tell you what they are, or he'll just like allow you to have what you want? I said, I never thought of that. So I studied that, and to delight in the Lord means to, guess what? Humble your heart to God. Be the clay and let him mold you. And then he will, the Hebrew word is Nathan, forgive, he will orchestrate his desires in your heart. So prayer is listening to God, void of hurry. Prayer is my response to God's initiative on my heart. Ruth Graham says this: "If you don't pray for more than 5 minutes at a time, the only voice you will hear is your own." Soren Kierkegaard says prayer is listening. Bow the knees of your heart, humble your heart, and listen to his still small voice. Jesus was busy often, but he never acted hurriedly. There's two words for time in the Bible, and we're messing with this deal called time. Got the picture up there because of hurry. And it's kurios and chronos. And chronos is where we get the word chronology. Chronos in the Greek is where we get our word chronology. And that's the clock. But there's another word, if I'm not mistaken, is kurios, is also used for Lord. And it means this: just in time. Like a trapeze artist. God is not in a hurry. Can you imagine? I was driving on the Autobahn. A buddy of mine was an IndyCar driver. And I said, man, what's that like to go 250 miles an hour down the straightaway at Indy? Can you imagine him doing that, going, like it was hurried? Can you imagine him going down that straightaway, not seeing where he was driving, and not having his frame aligned straightly, having a bent frame? Yet that's how you and I try to do life. And I was driving on the Autobahn going 155 miles per hour, and I kind of got what that was like a little bit, 100 miles an hour slower. But I noticed that when it said Munich, 5 kilometers, it's time to get over because that's going to happen in the next 60 seconds. Okay? But can you imagine going through life not seeing and not being aligned? And that's what we find here. Jesus says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all you who have hurried souls, disunity of the soul, and I will give you rest." And that's the first concept I want you to think about here. Under Christ as the antidote is rest. That he will give you vision. Rest does not mean sleep. Rest means absence from anxiety, absence from hurry, absence from worry, absence from wandering. And on the positive side, it means mission, vision, purpose, hope. Organizations have mission statements. Jesus seemed to have a mission statement. This church has a mission statement. Do you have one for your life? I just want to ask you today, would you consider what your vision is from Christ for you? He brought you on these course of events, this scene now. Would you consider having a vision statement for your life? And you might ask yourself 3 questions. How has God gifted me? what energizes me, and what makes me cry.